hypothetically, if your capacity to borrow isn't enough to buy where you live, are you better off investing into a different property and foregoing the government schemes for first buyers, like the no stamp duty where you are in what state, potentially the 5% deposit scheme or the no LMI, any of that stuff? Is the potential of growth of an investment property greater than what you would have saved by not having to pay LMI and stamp duty? We bought our first home as a PPOR and utilised the schemes. I'm just curious what could have been. Now, John, for the sake of this question, I don't know, Rach, let's make a number up, 700K property that's within a cap where you might have an LMI waiver due to your profession, you might use the government 5% deposit scheme, or we'll just call it, what I'm getting at is 15K LMI, 15K stamp duty. I just want a number, call it 30 grand.
Yeah, well, I sort of did some numbers here, and I came up with about 40 grand.
Okay, cool.
As costs.
Yeah, and that's pretty broad, most people within 3 hours out of a capital city in Australia.
500-600K sort of property.
Yeah. So, and this is like, I always think of my friends who are renting at East Gosford, young couple in their 30s, couple of kids, good incomes, rent's pretty expensive-ish. Now, they've got a decision. They might have some savings. They want to buy a home to live in. Can't really afford East Gosford anymore. Like, what do they do? Do they say, well, we're better off to get in the market and pay, quote unquote, the extra 40K that might give us a bigger upshot in the future? So when you first started talking about this years ago, for me, it was revolutionary thinking, because I'm not in this property world, because so many people thinking, I need to buy the house to live in.
First.
And even someone messaged me the other day who was at your home session that you did at your office where you both spoke. And she sent me a message like, oh, should I buy this place in Cessnock to live in? I'm like, why? Do you want to live in Cessnock? You live over an hour away. Oh, well, I need to get the first homeowner thing and live in it for 12 months. And it just leads on to this, well, is it still a good investment after a year? So
yeah, there's no...
Go for it, John.
There's no one size fits all, is there? Like the East Gosford example, we say, well, okay, I can't afford to live there, so I have to go 2-3 suburbs out and live in an area where I don't want to live, but I save myself 40K in first homeowner concessions or whatever that might be. However, I bought an asset that I think's inferior to if I went and bought an investment property somewhere else around the country. Like 40K on a 500, or easy maths, 400K property, 10%. So the property, we've saved 10%, but if it does nothing over the next 5 years, like that unit example you referenced to earlier, then the investment property is going to far outweigh the savings on the first homeowner. But if all the stars align and we want to live in our own home, we don't like renting, we can buy something that we're okay with to live in, and it's a reasonable asset for growth.
Yeah, go buy it.
We've got the winner.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah.
But this is the problem in this climate. More times than not, people can't find that exact winner.
Or are they not prepared to sacrifice going to another location to get a step in the door that's logically, financially sound?
Yeah, so like, do I say to my friends in East Gosford, hey, you want a home to live in that much? Well, you're moving to YE.
Yeah. And your friend at Cessnock might say, well, yeah, Cessnock's not my preferred destination. However, it saves me 40 grand. I buy some land. I don't know, it might even be subdividable. I don't know. But it gets me in, and it's a short-term plan.
But yeah, so this is interesting, and this is why I really wanted to kind of, dig in this trench. I think what you're saying is, in this climate in Australia, we have to be more strategic, because if we do really want to live in it, do we sacrifice, as you said, move to Cessnock, renovate it, subdivide it? We are ticking the living in it box.
Yeah.
We're also doing the add value, 12 months, 18 years, paint it, do the lawn. That's your sacrifice for 12 months, 2 years.
Yep.
Then you can go and buy where you want to live and that's the thing. When it's all washed up, you do have an asset that is a good investment property that we don't want to sell.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think a lot of the time your deposit will dictate what you do.
Yeah.
So it could be the fact that I can only afford to buy if I do live in it because I've only got a limited deposit. So I can't actually buy it for investment. So you may not have a choice. But if you did have the deposit and you could go in either way, then you really need to do the numbers both ways and then make the decision that's right for you. Now, if you were going to, this Hugh actually says that your borrowing capacity isn't enough to buy anything where they can live, well, then it's obviously going to be an investment property. You've got no choice. And if you can choose between getting in the market and not getting in the market, I'll choose get in the market every day.
Every day.
So as I said that, it's literally you have to live in reality and see where you're at. So you go down, because I drew this fork in the road as a Y, you speak to a broker, they say, how much have you got saved? We got nothing. All right, come back when you got something or,
Get your parents on the line.
Get your parents on the line.
Yeah.
Then you go, okay, so we've saved 40K in cash or 50. Can you give us our borrowing capacity to buy something to live in or as an investment? Because, and this is where it's a different world than even when we started this podcast. Talk to us about the difference in terms of what banks are willing to lend conceptually with investment lending versus living in lending.
Yeah, that's right. So it may be different. So if you're looking at let's say, a young single person was looking at a 4-bedroom home to buy, they might not be able to afford that on their income. But if they continued staying at home where they live with their parents and we could use the rental income for that 4-bedroom home, their borrowing capacity is going to be very different. So they might be able to, on their income, in that sort of situation, either buy a 1-bedroom unit on your income if you're going to live in it, or maybe if you can use that rental income and keep, living at home or renting in that share house, then you can actually afford to buy a property that's on land. What's going to be better for you longer term? What's the better long-term investment?
Yeah, and I think because it is such a different climate and everyone's situation, like if you look at the variables that we talk about in 2025, whatever year it is, versus the variables when we started the podcast in 2018, we're talking there's more variables in terms of your occupation now with LMI waivers.
Yep.
There's more federal government grants and schemes. We've got the variable of interest rates are now higher for investment properties.
Cost of
We're
living.
living in an environment where interest rates are now higher for interest only, where they weren't 10 years ago.
And also when you started the podcast, if you were living at home with your parents, there was no notional rent that needed to be used. So
Talk to us about what notional rent means.
So if you were living at home with your parents, in the bank's calculators, you could borrow a lot more because it would be your income and the rental income. But now, and that's a big change that happened maybe seven or 8 years ago, which is even if you're living at home with your parents rent-free, the banks still have to take a notional rent, which is, okay, you're not paying any rent, but we need to say that you should be able to afford to pay rent because we can't say how long you're going to be paying no rent for. So that's just another lever that they've paid that makes it, I guess, a little bit harder to keep borrowing more for an investment property if you do have little variances like living at home.
Yeah, and I think it just screams that in this climate, with everything going on and with housing prices going berserk, and the cost of living and all that, it is so bespoke, and it's really hard to do this podcast, but I just want to say loud and clear, your unique situation is so much more unique and personal than it was even 5 years ago when it comes to lending in your property strategy.
Absolutely. And the goalposts are always changing that are out of your control, aren't they? Right. But if I'm talking to a 15-year-old son named Max that's sort of sitting there saying, well, what am I going to do with my future? From a financial perspective,
Get a job in AI.
Wouldn't tell his mum this, but I'd be free vesting every day of the week as a start off to say, right, save your deposit, buy somewhere around the country, because we know where we're living now, he can't buy his own home to live in, just not feasible, and get a start when you're 18, 19, 20 and save the money that way. And it's just so much of a leg up to be able to get some sort of asset under your belt early and then decide what it is that you're going to do later on. But the concepts of real estate will never change. Supply versus demand, right? And what assets grow in value and what doesn't.
And I honestly think, like, if I can be a filthy capitalist pig at the moment, like I am most of the time, with all the stuff that, whatever government's in power at the time you're listening to this, right? From 2025 over the next 5 years, I'm going out on a limb to say the housing crisis, it could take 10 years or more to fix in this country. Because if it is a supply and demand thing, increasing supply, it's going to take years because we've got to build new properties. Decreasing demand, it's a catch-22 because immigration comes into that. But also we need quality skilled people to build these places. And then with, I don't know because the election hasn't been at the time of recording this at the start of May, the TAFE, free TAFE and all that, and going out on a limb again that I think the Labor Party not should as in my view, but likely will form government again. Even if they do the free TAFE, it's going to take 5, 10, 6 years to actually build all these houses to alleviate the demand side and work. Like, it is complex. So we do. I don't think the property market's slowing down anytime soon wherever you are in Australia. So that's why we need to, you gave me a look and I'll throw it to you, but that's why we need to be very strategic. Who would have thought at the time of recording this that we're saying the month is May? Time, and it's probably because I'm getting older, but time just seems to be going so much faster now. Before we know it, it's going to be another year down the track. And if you don't get a plan in place and speak to a broker, speak to John, get very strategic, friggin' do a turd or get off the potty, whatever, like, you've got to take action. The person, she sent me that thing, when was your property seminar? Was it the end
3
of
months
last
ago?
year? No.
No, the one we did in person, you and I.
Yeah.
3 months ago.
When was it?
That's what I mean.
I have no idea.
It was 18 months ago.
No, it was in the new office at the end of last year at your new office.
Probably 12 months ago.
It was.
Okay.
Either way, no, because it wasn't 12 months because the building wasn't finished in 12 months. We'll call it November. Who cares? This person, she went to the seminar, she read the book, she's talked to mortgage brokers, still hasn't made a decision. Now, she's in a financial position to make a decision. She needs to make a decision. But I will caveat, it needs to be in her own time, but also make a decision. Are we doing this or not? Because time's going to pass anyway. I was listening to a podcast the other day with a philosopher. Also, I had a riddy about an hour ago, so I'm dialed in. They probably won't want that in this episode, but whatever. Sorry, we'll edit it out if you want, guys. They'll get a draft of this. I'm so dialed in right now, but I was listening to this podcast and it's better to have it's better to have a bad plan than no plan. Because guess what? You can fix a bad plan as you move along. But if you stay there for years without any action, that's worse off.
Yeah, and following what John said about the advice he would give to his son about rent vesting and all of, buying when you can, I've never met somebody who's, stayed at home or been in a share house and bought a property, forgo the government incentives to buy a property that's later regretted it. Not once, not ever, has a client come back and said, I wish I didn't buy that property 5 years ago because I could have saved $30,000 in stamp duty if I'd waited.
But this is such a psychology thing, isn't it? Like, I get the same thing all the time with the Retire Right podcast. These people that they're coming up to retire, they might be 60 years old, have over $1 million in super. We had one lady the other day put in the Facebook group, hey, is $5,000 for financial advice too expensive, or I think it's a bit expensive. I saw her name. I went and looked on the submission form because I referred her to the advisor. I'm like, you've got over $3 million worth of assets. What are we doing having this conversation that you don't want to spend $5,000? But the thing is, because of the psychology of it, on its own, $5,000, that's a lot of money. I don't often just do $5,000 expenses. But if you step back and your net worth is over $2.5 million, we're not having this conversation. So I think that psychology thing, you want me to give up, John, $40,000 of incentives to buy a property that might be 4 hours away or interstate. You want me to do that?
Well, and that's where your attention turns to long-term planning, doesn't it? So I'm walking past that 40 grand on the carpet. I'm heading towards something that's going to give me a far greater return, and I think that's the mindset that at that age, it's really the conversations you're having with key people in your life that almost form that, don't they? Like mum and dad say, go and do this, I'll probably do it, or maybe not, I don't know. Who are you talking to in the mortgage broking space, in the accounting space, in the buyer's agent, like property education space?
How many clients do you guys have, just call it on the fly at the moment or over the last 6 weeks in your businesses that are buying investment properties that are interstate to them? Like, would you say most people buying investment property, or?
Yeah, I would 60 to 70% would be buying interstate.
I would say of the people that are buying an investment property standalone, so not using their own home as cruise, just their first property and it's an investment, I would say about 30% would be in a different state to them.
Yeah.
Because obviously a lot of owner-occs, which you're saying just out of the investors.
Or are you still having investors that are buying in the street next to them?
I still find that a lot of people who have their own home and they're buying their first investment property tend to buy in the same state, where an investor who's buying their first property as an investment property is more likely to buy in another state.
No, that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, but the more I was thinking as we were chatting about that, I know I'm like a bloody pendulum Johnny, but if I was to buy another residential property,
here he goes.
I don't know if I could stomach it buying it interstate.
I was here 2 weeks ago to the day, and he's out the front telling this another guy that he's done with residential. 2 weeks later.
No, that's a hypothetical. Like, I don't think I am, because I'm just going to do commercial. Oh, that was when I was saying to the guy, because I want to buy one of his commercial properties off the plan.
Yeah, he was smoozing the commercial guy.
Because it's some weird...
It's comfort.
Yeah, but so I think it unpacks this investor risk profile. I haven't read your book, John, but do you talk about risk? And
neither have I, but I think I do. Yeah.
So
no, look, it is important.
The first risk is you want me to buy a property and forego $40,000. That's the first hurdle to get over.
Yeah.
Secondly, you want me to buy a property that is not near here, interstate, out of your control. You want me to do that? I still struggle with that, because at least I know my properties I can drive past. Not that I do.
I was going to say, do you though?
Not really. Well, Blue Bay I do, because I'm always going fast and I'm curious. And
if you drop down from Mars and you nothing about Australian property and just said those two things, you want me to forego 40K and you want me to buy somewhere I've never been to as opposed to up the road, that makes sense. But on the ground, I'm never telling someone what to do. I'm just putting the options out there to say, okay, if you're going to take advantage of that 40K, this is what you can get yourself, because this is where you've told me you're prepared to live. Do you want that? Okay, no. Right. All right. So investment-wise, here's the research that suggests these areas might work based on your yield, your type, your price you're spending, and what's worked in the last 100 years. Okay, well, that makes sense to me. So it shifts from being emotional to totally non-emotional based on research.
And I think as well because I'm very
Flighty.
What?
Flighty?
No, more that control freak in me.
Yeah.
So like that property at Blue Bay, it needed a new door handle in the master bedroom because the lock didn't work. The agent, which I've now fired, probably be better now, they went along. And this is just a perfect example of some of the hookups that I have and other people might. I'm like, send the handyman out. Handyman out, yep. I'm like, did you pull the bastard apart and WD-40 it? It's just a lock, come on. Oh no, it needs a new handle. I'm like, okay, can he match it? Oh, he went to Bunnings or whatever, can't match it. I'm like, okay. Last time I was down at Blue Bay, dropped in to see the neighbour because it's a townhouse complex, had a cuppa with Edith. She's mid-80s now and it was just a nice catch-up. I said, oh, while I'm here, can I just have a look at the privacy lock upstairs? And yep, had a look. Sweet. Parisi, took some photos of it. Parisi door handle, found it on the website, got it ordered.
Because they're all the same in the complex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so I literally just wanted to know what the model was
Yeah.
and found it. And the real estate and the handyman, it's just the care factor's not there.
Yeah.
Because it's not theirs.
It's not theirs. But for me, I don't, like, sure, if there was, you could not make them anymore. It's like, okay, we'll have to have a slightly different handle in the master bedroom.
Yeah.
But this property's, what, less than 10 years old.
Okay, so
Like,
we digressed a little.
We are, but this is part of the psychology of the control.
Yeah.
I've got the freaking handle in my car. I text the tenant. I'm like, hey, I've just ordered a new handle. It's going to be 4 weeks. I'll go myself and just fix it because I can use tools and I need to tighten up a towel rack in the ensuite.
Yeah. Okay.
I can do that.
So you've changed the scenario and say now the Blue Bay door handle is now in Goondiwindi.
Yeah.
So, okay, property manager, what's the model of the door handle? Go online. Okay, can you buy it online and get it sorted and put it in our invoice for the annual for the monthly statement? You haven't had to have any involvement in it.
So are you, and maybe this is, and again, this is the education that reduces fear.
You shouldn't have to do that.
That's
but
right, and this
yeah.
is probably why I
A
had
good
to get.
property
That's
manager
why I had to
would
fire them.
alleviate that problem.
Correct.
But as you were saying all of these things that you've just done, I was just doing the math in my head of what that cost me
In
being
time.
out of my business.
Yes.
And it's a whole lot more than if I just paid $200 for a silly door handle because you think of what your time's worth. Now, yes, you need a good property
I don't
manager.
have a job, so nothing.
Yes, you need a good property manager to make sure that they're managing it like it is their own. But again, if you've got a few properties, you need to be able to just let them go and do their thing
you could
because
have
your
bought
time's
a whole new door for
Yeah.
the time that you've spent to go
No,
down
but
there
you
and
still need
replace
to
it.
buy a handle that matches for the new door. So chill out. But so are you saying a good property manager, and seriously, if you're a property manager listening to this, please comment if you're listening on YouTube or put in the Facebook group, should the owner have had to, like, I shouldn't have to go, no, I'm not, no, just I'll sort it because I've just got the view, if it's a property that I've got other people living in that I own, I want it to a standard that I would like. And if that means I want all matching door handles upstairs, given that it's still a quote unquote new property, like, don't crap me. Use your brain and be like, we'll sort it. Okay, that handyman's obviously lazy or doesn't care. Let's get some people who freaking care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it comes back to a good property
Yeah,
manager.
and I had a property manager reach out to me recently for a new build in Queensland and say this needs to be replaced. Here's the quote. Can we please proceed? And I sent them the warranty to show that item was out of warranty. You've got all this in your office. So, but that would have been no different had it been an hour from my house. I've still never been to this property, but I can still have the paperwork here to make the, tell that and that's a good property manager. They just made a mistake, but I'm still glad that I was there to go, that's under warranty.
Well, I've since got a thing now. It's like anytime you go and work and fix something in there, I want a photo before and after. Simple.
That's great.
Because when I didn't do that and the fire alarm people came in and mounted the fire alarm in a different spot and left holes in the roof, like, kill me.
I saw a picture.
And I think once you gain that trust and rapport and mutual respect with the property manager, when you've held that property for a little while, you should never know that there was a door handle issue, to be honest. Like, it might be a little, okay, if it's less than $100, just go and do it.
Well, I'll tell you, because I've just changed the property manager to the one that Rach suggested for me. Thank you, Rach. She emailed me the other day, hey, tenant, same property, the water flow in the kitchen flick mixer, like something's screwed. Can we send a plumber? I'm like, yeah, do it. Because I know I'm not doing that. Hey, it's Glenn here. Thank you so much for watching today's video. You made it to the end. Can I ask a favor? Can you hit that like button and maybe hit subscribe if you want to get notified when we release further videos just like this one, whether you watch the Money, Money, Money podcast or Retire Right. And remember, if you want to learn more about investing, I've got an investing book, The Quick Start Guide to Investing, and there's a link in the description to get your hands on a copy. Thank you so much. Bye.